The galaxy had watched humans with quiet amusement for years. They were the newcomers, the species that valued words over weapons, peace over power, and patience over pride. At first, the other races thought it was weakness, a flaw that would doom humanity to remain small, unheard, and harmless. But inside the human heart, storms were building. The fragile treaties signed after the first contact wars had bought humanity breathing space. On paper, the agreements promised equality and respect, but in practice, humans were mocked in alien councils, ignored in decisions, and pushed aside. In trade, their colonies were taxed unfairly, their ships searched without reason, their voices silenced whenever they tried to protest. The peace humans had chosen to protect so dearly was nothing more than a cage made of lies. Admiral Reeve sat alone in the command deck of Earth's hidden fortress station, his eyes fixed on the endless stars. He knew what the others refused to admit. The aliens did not respect peace, they only respected power, and humanity's patience, stretched thin for decades, was about to snap. Rumors spread like wildfire across the colonies, whispers of attacks disguised as pirate raids, whispers of missing cargo fleets, whispers of massacred outposts, and always, the Council dismissed them as accidents, as misunderstandings. But the humans who buried their dead knew the truth. They were being tested, poked, and slowly bled dry. On New Carthage, a farming colony near the Rim, a single event became the match that lit the fire. The colony had been under pressure from alien inspectors who demanded more than the farms could give. When the humans refused, the inspectors returned with soldiers. It was supposed to be a simple show of force. Instead, it became a slaughter. Hundreds of colonists lay dead, fields burned, homes shattered. And when desperate calls for help reached the Galactic Council, they were met with silence. That silence was the last straw. Across human space, anger turned into something sharper, something dangerous. The people began to chant a single word: enough. Back on Earth, leaders gathered in the war chamber, a place that had not been used in generations. The air was thick with grief, but beneath it burned a fire. They had begged for peace. They had bent their pride. They had given every chance for trust. But humanity's patience had limits, and the galaxy had just crossed it. Admiral Reeve rose to speak, his voice low but firm. We asked for peace, and they gave us chains. We offered friendship, and they gave us graves. Now we show them who we truly are. Around him, generals and governors stood as one. For the first time in centuries, humanity was united. No more divisions of nation or colony. No more silence. The humans refused to stay peaceful any longer in the deep black of space. Hidden fleets stirred awake. Warships older than most thought, upgraded in secret, engines roaring to life. Dockyards lit up as new vessels rolled out, sleek, powerful, terrifying in their design. What the aliens never understood was that humans had prepared. Peace was their mask, patience their weapon. And now, the mask was gone. The colonies that had cried out for justice saw human fleets rising like storms. Families of the fallen whispered with tears and hope. The children who had watched their homes burn now dreamed of a future where humanity stood tall. The air itself seemed to vibrate with change. The galaxy still believed humans would bow, that they would accept their fate quietly. But those who truly knew humanity, the survivors of Earth's wars, the veterans of forgotten battles, felt it coming. Something ancient, something unstoppable. A storm was about to break, and when the first human fleet moved into formation, the stars themselves seemed to shiver. The galaxy had no idea what was coming, but humanity did, and they were ready. The broken promise. The smoke of New Carthage still hung heavy in human memory. Images of burned homes, shattered families, and lifeless bodies had spread across every colony, every ship, every station. No human could watch those transmissions without feeling anger rising deep in their chest. What was once grief was now something sharper, forged into rage. The Galactic Council gathered soon after the tragedy. Representatives of alien empires spoke in calm voices, hiding behind polished words. They promised an investigation, they promised justice, they promised order. But the humans who sat in that chamber saw only lies dressed as peace. They remembered all the earlier promises, every single one broken. And in that moment, humanity realized the Council would never protect them. The galaxy's law was nothing but the will of the strongest. Ambassador Lyra, the human voice in the Council, stood tall as the chamber mocked her pleas. She demanded answers, demanded punishment for those who slaughtered innocents. But instead of support, the chamber filled with laughter. An alien governor sneered, "Humans speak of justice as if they matter. You were granted your colonies only because we allowed it." The words echoed like poison, and across the galaxy, billions of humans heard them replayed. It was no longer just an insult. It was a declaration. They were nothing in the Council's eyes, nothing but weaklings to be stepped on. On Earth, the war chamber was filled with silence as leaders reviewed the recordings. Children's cries, mothers holding lifeless hands, fathers digging graves in the ash. No human could remain calm. Even those who had once begged for endless diplomacy clenched their fists. The truth was undeniable. The peace was broken, not by humanity, but by those who despised them. Admiral Reeve called his officers together. We begged for fairness. We bent our pride, and still they answered with blood. "Enough is enough. Humanity will never kneel again." His words carried across encrypted channels to every human fleet, and in every soldier's heart, fire ignited. The colonies, once divided by distance and pride, now spoke as one. Miners from the asteroid belt sent supplies freely. Farmers from distant planets donated food for soldiers. Engineers stayed awake through nights, reforging broken war machines. Even the poorest citizens gave what little they had. The cry of unity thundered from Earth to the farthest rim. No more chains, no more silence, no more broken promises. Secret human intelligence operatives uncovered the truth of New Carthage. It was not a pirate raid, not a mistake. It was ordered by one of the most powerful alien coalitions, the Veil Dominion. Their soldiers had marched with arrogance, believing no consequence would follow. The Dominion saw humans as tools, workers, and if necessary, sacrifices. And they had underestimated how dangerous desperation could make mankind. When news of the Dominion's betrayal spread, people hardened their resolve. No longer would they wait for permission to act. No longer would they hide their strength. For too long, they had listened to empty words. Now, they would answer with steel. The first retaliation began quietly. A Dominion patrol fleet entered human space, expecting compliance. Instead, they vanished without a trace. Weeks later, another alien freighter discovered the wreckage. Dominion cruisers split open, their hulls scorched black. Human ships had struck with precision and vanished like shadows. The message was clear. The rules had changed. The Dominion raged, calling for punishment. But behind their words was fear. They had seen the weapons humans were never supposed to have. They had seen tactics too sharp, too fast, too merciless. The humans were no longer playing defense. They were answering betrayal with war. In the colonies, hope began to bloom among the ashes. Where once there was despair, now there was defiance. Songs of resistance filled hidden taverns. Children played pretending to be captains of human warships. Every man and woman, young and old, felt the same truth. Peace was dead, but unity was alive. The broken promise of the Council had given humanity something stronger than treaties. It had given them purpose, but Reeve knew the storm was only beginning. The Dominion would not stay silent. Their fleets were massive, their armies countless, their arrogance blinding. The galaxy would soon burn with battles greater than any before. And humanity, untested in full-scale war against such power, would face its greatest trial. As the Admiral stood before the massive star map, he whispered words only his closest aides heard. They thought we were weak. They thought we would stay peaceful forever. They were wrong. The war begins now. Beyond the glass of the command deck, Earth's hidden fleets moved into full readiness, engines blazed, weapons charged, and ships that had slept for decades awakened. The galaxy had broken its promise. Now humanity would answer, and in the shadows of the stars, the first true battle waited, ready to erupt at any moment. The first response. The silence after the Dominion massacre did not last long. In hidden bases beneath Earth's oceans, in hangars buried under Martian deserts, in secret shipyards orbiting forgotten moons, the fleets of humanity stirred awake. For decades, engineers and soldiers had prepared in shadows, telling no one, waiting for the day peace would finally break. That day had come. Admiral Reeve stood inside the command tower of the fortress station, codenamed Aegis. Before him stretched the vast projection of the Sol system, marked with red warnings where Dominion scouts had entered human space. "They think we are still the same," he muttered, his voice cold but steady. "They have no idea what waits for them." The first orders were simple. Fleet groups hidden near the asteroid belt moved into strike formation. Carriers that looked like ordinary cargo haulers revealed their armored hulls and unfolded wings filled with gunships. Even civilian liners had secret refits, turning them into troop carriers bristling with cannons. Every ship, every station, every outpost had been prepared quietly, patiently, under the nose of the arrogant council. On Titan's ice plains, soldiers stood in ranks as dropships lifted them into the sky. Young men and women once dismissed as colonists were now armored in gleaming exosuits. Their faces hardened with determination. They remembered New Carthage. They remembered the laughter of the council, and they were ready to make the galaxy remember them. The first human response was not a battle of rage, but a calculated strike. Admiral Reeve knew humanity could not throw themselves blindly at the Dominion. The enemy was larger, stronger, more experienced in war, but humanity had one advantage the galaxy had forgotten. They were unpredictable. The order was given. Task Force Echo, a fleet of 20 ships, slipped into Dominion-controlled space near the Veil border. Their mission was not to destroy planets, but to send a message. Within hours, Dominion patrol stations blinked off the map, their comms silenced, their defenses cut down with surgical precision. The humans struck fast and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Whispers spread through alien channels. "The humans are hunting us." A Dominion admiral, furious at the reports, ordered his fleet forward. 200 ships strong, bristling with weapons, it surged into human space expecting submission. Instead, they found nothing but silence. Sensors picked up empty systems, abandoned mining stations, quiet colonies with lights darkened. The Dominion commander sneered, calling the humans cowards. But then the trap closed. From the asteroid belt itself, massive human dreadnoughts emerged, their hulls layered with new armor forged in secret. Hidden missile platforms lit up, turning the void into fire. Human fighters poured from hidden carriers, weaving between Dominion cruisers like angry swarms. The first major clash of the war had begun. The Dominion fleet, though powerful, was stunned by the precision of human tactics. They had expected disorganized resistance, slow ships, outdated weapons. Instead, they faced a force that struck with discipline and fury. Every Dominion advance was countered, every maneuver anticipated. Humans fought as if they had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. On Earth, billions watched the battle unfold on encrypted transmissions. Families huddled in silence. Leaders stood with clenched fists. Children whispered prayers. And when the first Dominion battleship erupted in flames, cheers shook every colony. It was not just a victory. It was proof that humanity could fight, and that they would not be broken. Still, the cost was heavy. Human ships burned alongside alien ones. Soldiers fell with courage in their eyes. Every victory came at a price, and Admiral Reeve knew this was only the beginning. Yet he also knew something else. The galaxy would never again see humans as harmless. Back in the Dominion capital, fear spread for the first time. Advisors whispered to their leaders that humans were not the weak creatures they believed. The Dominion dismissed the warnings, claiming the humans had gotten lucky, but deep in their hearts, even the proudest commanders felt a tremor of unease, because luck did not explain fleets built in secret, tactics executed with perfection, or soldiers who fought as if their souls were on fire. The Galactic Council tried once more to calm the situation. They urged restraint, they spoke of peace, they begged both sides to stop. But humanity refused to bow this time. Ambassador Lyra stood in the council chamber and said the words that shook the galaxy. Peace is not given. It is respected. You broke it. Now you will face the consequences. Her voice carried to every system, to every race. Some aliens scoffed, others trembled. For the first time, humanity was not asking for respect. They were demanding it, and as Task Force Echo returned to Earth's orbit, battered but unbroken, the soldiers were greeted not with silence, but with roaring pride. Crowds lined the docking bays, waving banners, chanting songs of defiance. Children lifted their hands to touch the armor of returning warriors. Humanity had changed in those days. The fear that once held them down had been replaced with fire. But Admiral Reeve knew this was only the first step. The Dominion was enraged, their fleets would grow larger, their retaliation more brutal. The galaxy itself would tremble as the war spread, and the humans, though united, would be tested like never before. As he looked across the dark expanse of stars, he whispered a vow to the fallen of New Carthage. They wanted war. Now they will see what it means to awaken humanity. The war had erupted, and it was only just beginning. The war ignites. The first clash near the asteroid belt had been only the beginning. Humanity had shown its hidden strength, but the Dominion was not a power that forgave humiliation. Across their empire, fleets were mobilized, legions recalled, weapons sharpened, and when they came in fire and fury. The Dominion struck 3 human colonies at once, on Ardent Prime, skies filled with burning streaks as enemy ships poured fire onto the surface. On Helios Station, orbital platforms shook under heavy bombardment, and on Vega's Reach, soldiers stormed through towns with brutal precision. It was no longer whispers of war. It was war in its truest, bloodiest form. Admiral Reeve received the reports with a face carved in stone. Around him, commanders shouted plans, debated strategies, pleaded for reinforcements, but Reeve raised a hand, silencing them all. They want to drown us in fear, he said quietly, but fear is not what they will find. The order went out. Operation Dawnstrike. It was humanity's first full-scale war response. Within hours, fleets from Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies converged on the threatened worlds. Every ship, every fighter, every soldier was thrown into the fire. This was no longer about defense alone. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity would never kneel again. On Ardent Prime, civilians huddled in bunkers as Dominion war machines marched across fields. Then from the clouds, human gunships screamed down, unleashing storms of missiles. The Earth shook as armored divisions surged forward, their banners raised high. Colonists who had lost hope rose from hiding, joining the soldiers with whatever weapons they could carry. The Dominion had expected surrender, but instead they faced defiance in every street. On Helios Station, Dominion cruisers hammered the orbital ring with relentless fire. But hidden within the station's framework were rail cannons, dormant for decades. With a single command, the cannons roared awake, spearing through enemy hulls with beams of molten light. Explosions blossomed across the void, and for the first time, Dominion warships retreated before human defenses. The fiercest battle erupted at Vega's Reach. There, human soldiers faced Dominion troops in close combat. The air was filled with the clash of steel and the screams of the wounded, but the humans fought like a storm unleashed. Driven by rage, loss, and the memory of New Carthage, even when outnumbered, even when surrounded, they refused to break. One Dominion commander shouted in disbelief, "They fight as if death itself does not frighten them." Every victory came with sacrifice. Human blood stained the soil of colonies. Ships burned in the darkness of space. Families were torn apart, but every sacrifice hardened humanity further. They were no longer a people begging for peace. They were a people earning respect through fire. The galaxy watched in silence. Worlds that had once mocked humans now trembled as they saw the Dominion's pride wounded again and again. Stories spread of ordinary men and women who stood against impossible odds. A farmer who picked up a fallen
soldier's rifle and held a bridge until reinforcements arrived.
A medic who saved dozens while shells rained around her, refusing to leave the wounded behind. A squad of engineers who detonated themselves along with a Dominion cruiser to protect a retreating convoy. These stories became legends whispered across the stars. And in every whisper, the same truth echoed: humans would not be broken. Back in the council chamber, the alien leaders argued among themselves. Some demanded humanity be crushed before they grew stronger. Others feared what might happen if they failed. But none could deny what the galaxy now saw. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not fragile. They were a storm that had been forced to awaken. Admiral Reeve stood once more before the war chamber. His uniform was stained with ash, his eyes weary, but his voice carried iron. We did not ask for this war. We did not start it, but we will finish it. And when the galaxy remembers these days, they will know humanity was never to be underestimated again. The chamber erupted in unified voices. Governors pledged more fleets. Colonies offered more recruits. Factories promised endless supplies. Humanity had been divided once, but war had burned those divisions away. Now they were one people, one will, one defiance. And yet, as victories were counted and sacrifices honored, shadows loomed ahead. The Dominion was far from defeated, their full strength not yet unleashed. Their pride would not allow them to stop until humanity was erased or enslaved. Reeve knew the hardest battles were still to come, and in the silence of his private quarters, he allowed himself a whisper meant for no one but the stars. If they want to see humanity's true strength, then they will see it. They will see it in every drop of blood, in every burning star, until the galaxy itself trembles. The war had ignited, and there was no turning back. The galaxy trembles. The first full battles of the war shook the stars. Every alien empire, every neutral world, every hidden observer watched in silence as reports poured across the networks. The Dominion, once untouchable, once feared above all others, was bleeding, and the blood spilled was by human hands. For centuries, the galaxy had looked down upon humanity. They called them children, fragile, naive, unfit for the brutal games of empires. But now those same voices trembled as they spoke. For the humans had not only risen to fight, they had risen to win. On Ardent Prime, burned fields were rebuilt as soldiers raised the human flag over shattered Dominion mechs. On Helios Station, engineers patched holes in the orbital ring while survivors sang songs of defiance. On Vega's Reach, families wept over graves, but their voices were filled with pride. Every scar became a reminder that they had stood, and they had endured. The galaxy trembled not only because of humanity's victories, but because of their unity. No empire could imagine such strength forged so quickly. Old nations on Earth put aside centuries of rivalries. Colonies that once argued over resources now shared everything freely. The humans were no longer scattered. Voices, they were a single storm. In taverns across alien space, whispers grew louder. Have you seen how they fight? One trader murmured. They burn and break, but they never stop. Another voice added. They lose 100 and still send 1,000 more. It is as if their spirit is made of iron. For every alien who dismissed the humans, there were now 2 who feared them. And for every alien who feared them, there were some who began to admire them. Admiral Reeve, now known across human space as the Iron Voice, stood in the war chamber once again. Before him were maps littered with red lines and glowing warnings. Every battle won led to more battles ahead. The Dominion was gathering forces on a scale humanity had never faced, but still, Reeve's eyes burned with fire. They think their numbers will break us, he told his generals. But numbers mean nothing against resolve, and humanity's resolve is endless. The Dominion could not ignore the growing legend of human resistance. They unleashed propaganda across the galaxy, calling humans reckless savages, destroyers of order, a plague of chaos. But every lie collapsed when compared to the truth of human sacrifice. The galaxy saw not monsters, but families defending themselves, soldiers fighting for freedom, children refusing to bow. The Dominion's words crumbled under the weight of reality. In the ruins of New Carthage, survivors gathered to light memorial flames. Every flame was a promise, every whisper a vow that their dead would not be forgotten. Children stood with candles in hand, their faces glowing in the firelight. They had seen destruction, but they also saw hope. And when one young boy raised his small voice and shouted, "We will never be slaves," the entire colony answered with thunderous cries. The galaxy trembled again, not from fear of weapons, but from the power of unity. Because unity was something no empire could easily crush. Even fractured alien species saw it and remembered their own divisions. Some began to question their leaders. Others quietly sent aid to humanity in secret, afraid of Dominion retaliation. But the seed had been planted. The idea that perhaps humanity's struggle was not only their own in the Dominion capital. Rage boiled. The High Council demanded vengeance, demanded humanity's complete annihilation. Fleet after fleet was prepared, massive armadas larger than anything humanity had ever faced. They planned to sweep into human space and erase every colony, every world, every soul. But in their arrogance, they ignored the truth. Every time they tried to crush humanity, they only made them stronger. Ambassador Lyra, still standing firm in the Galactic Council, continued to speak with unshaken defiance. She no longer begged for justice. She demanded recognition. "Look at us," she said, her voice echoing across the chamber. "You tried to bury us, but you only planted us. You tried to silence us, but now the galaxy hears us louder than ever. Humanity will not vanish. Humanity will rise." Her words spread across networks faster than Dominion propaganda could silence them. On neutral worlds, protests broke out. Against Dominion aggression, on small colonies, alien workers began wearing human symbols as quiet acts of rebellion. The galaxy trembled again, not just from war, but from awakening. But Reeve knew the trembling was only the beginning. The Dominion's full fury had not yet struck. He stood before the War Council, pointing at the growing swarm of enemy fleets. "On the star map, they are coming with everything they have," he said, his voice calm but edged with steel. "And when they do, we will not only endure, we will break them." The room fell silent, every commander staring at the burning red lines on the display. It would be the greatest storm humanity had ever faced. And in that silence, Reeve whispered words only his closest officers heard. "The galaxy trembles now, but soon it will bow." The turning point, the Dominion, came with the storm they had promised. Their fleets stretched across the stars, a wall of fire and steel. Every ship bristled with weapons. Every commander certain of victory. The Dominion had crushed countless enemies before, and they believed humans would be no different. From the edges of human space, scouts reported the incoming tide. Entire constellations turned red on Admiral Reeve's star map. Billions held their breath as the news spread. This would not be a skirmish, not a raid, not a test. This would be the battle that decided if humanity survived or was erased. In the war chamber, silence reigned as officers studied the impossible numbers. Some whispered that no fleet could stand against such power. Others clenched their fists in anger, refusing to surrender even in thought. Admiral Reeve finally broke the silence, his voice carrying calm strength. "They think numbers win wars, but wars are won by will, by strategy, by sacrifice, and our will is stronger than their pride." The plan he revealed shocked even his closest allies. Instead of meeting the Dominion head-on in open space, Reeve proposed something bolder. The humans would strike at the very heart of the enemy formation, not with overwhelming numbers, but with precision, speed, and daring that no Dominion commander would expect. It was a gamble, but humanity had always lived by gambles. Preparation. Moved quickly. Engineers worked without sleep, refitting ships with experimental weapons. Pilots trained for maneuvers so dangerous they had never been attempted in real combat. Ground forces readied for infiltration missions into enemy-controlled systems. Every soldier, every worker, every leader knew this was the turning point. If they failed, humanity would fall. If they succeeded, the galaxy would never look at them the same again. The day came when the Dominion fleets advanced into the Vega corridor. It was a trap the Dominion believed they had set. A narrow star lane where humans could be cornered. But in truth, it was the humans who had chosen the ground. From hidden asteroid bases, from cloaked stations, from ships masked in silence, humanity struck. The first salvo tore through the front of the Dominion formation. Rail cannons hidden in asteroids split cruisers in half. Missile swarms erupted from moons disguised as lifeless rocks, and human dreadnoughts surged forward like predators, slamming. Into the enemy's core, the Dominion commanders shouted in disbelief, caught between pride and panic. This was not the weak prey they expected. This was a predator they had unleashed themselves. The battle raged for hours. Dominion fleets poured fire into the void, burning human ships, cutting down fighters. But for every human ship destroyed, another seemed to rise in its place. They fought not for conquest, but for survival. Every soldier remembered New Carthage, every pilot remembered the broken promises, every captain remembered the laughter of the council. Their fury turned into steel, and their steel turned into victory. On the ground, infiltration teams struck Dominion. Supply depots, cutting off reinforcements, saboteurs detonated fuel stations, leaving massive fleets stranded. Entire Dominion offensives collapsed under the weight of human cunning. The galaxy trembled as it watched. Humans were not simply resisting, they were winning. One story spread faster than all others. A single squadron of human pilots, outnumbered 10-1, held a Dominion choke point long enough for an entire colony to evacuate. They fought until their ships were torn apart. But not a single civilian transport was lost when the last pilot whispered, "For humanity," before his ship vanished. In fire, his words echoed across human space like thunder. They became a rallying cry, proof that even in death, humans could not be broken. By the battle's end, the unthinkable had happened. The Dominion fleet, massive, arrogant, overwhelming, was forced to retreat for the first time in centuries. The Dominion tasted defeat. The galaxy gasped in shock. The turning point had arrived. On Earth, bells rang across cities. Crowds filled the streets. Tears of grief mixed with tears of pride. They mourned their dead. But they also celebrated something greater. Humanity had stood against the greatest power in the galaxy, and had not only survived, they had won. In the council chamber, Ambassador Lyra stood with her head high. Alien leaders who once sneered at her now sat in silence. "You told us we were too weak," she said, her voice sharp as steel. "You told us to stay quiet, to accept your chains. But today, the galaxy has seen the truth. Humanity will not bow. Humanity will not break. Humanity will rise." The words carried far beyond the chamber. On neutral worlds, revolts began. On Dominion-controlled planets, whispers of rebellion grew louder. The sight of humans defeating the invincible inspired the broken, the oppressed, the forgotten. Hope spread like wildfire, but Admiral Reeve knew the war was far from over. The Dominion would never forgive such humiliation. They would return with greater fury, with greater numbers, with weapons humanity had never seen. And though the humans had won the turning point, the storm ahead would be darker still. In his private log, Reeve wrote the words that defined the moment. "The galaxy has seen us, the Dominion has feared us, and now history will remember us, for we are humanity, and we refuse to fall." The war had reached its turning point, and the galaxy itself had changed forever. the legacy of defiance. The galaxy had changed. The Dominion had been wounded, their fleets broken, their pride shattered. But even in defeat, their hunger for vengeance burned hotter than ever. They swore the humans would be erased, no matter the cost. Massive armadas began to assemble once more. Weapons older than empires were dragged from hidden vaults. Whole worlds were emptied of soldiers to fill new legions. The Dominion was willing to bleed itself dry just to crush humanity. They wanted to prove that no one could ever defy them and live. Admiral Reeve knew this final storm was coming. From the war chamber, he watched as enemy fleets gathered across the stars. His officers whispered of doom, of impossible odds, of battles that could not be won. But Reeve stood calm, his eyes fixed not on numbers but on purpose. "They think they face a fleet," he said, his voice steady, "but they face humanity itself." The final battle began at the rim of Orion. It was there that the Dominion unleashed everything. Thousands of ships poured into human space, blotting out the stars with fire. The void shook with the fury of their weapons. Every human colony, every station, every family held their breath. This was the day the galaxy would decide if humanity lived or died. The human fleets surged forward to meet them. Dreadnoughts led the charge, their cannons blazing. Carriers unleashed endless wings of fighters. Every ship, every soldier, every civilian who could help threw themselves into the fight. It was not just an army that fought that day. It was a people, united in defiance. The battle raged for days. Human ships burned, Dominion cruisers shattered. The void became a graveyard of wreckage and flame. But through it all, the humans never faltered. When one line broke, another formed. When one ship fell, its crew sang their last words into the comms so others would not lose hope. They fought as if every star in the galaxy depended on them. And then came the moment at the heart of the Dominion. Armada stood their flagship, a colossal fortress bristling with weapons. It was the symbol of their empire, the iron fist that had crushed countless worlds. Reeve gave the order that would decide everything. "All ships, focus fire!" The humans struck with everything they had. Rail cannons tore through its shields, missile storms battered its hull, fighters swarmed across its surface. The Dominion flagship roared with fury, burning hundreds of human ships in its wrath. But humanity refused to break. Piece by piece, the fortress fell. Until at last, it erupted in a blaze that lit the stars. The explosion was more than victory. It was the breaking of chains. The Dominion fleets faltered, their commanders stunned, their soldiers shaken. For the first time in their history, they faced not only defeat, but collapse. Across the galaxy, silence followed the destruction. And then whispers began. If the humans could defeat the Dominion, perhaps no empire was truly invincible. If the humans could stand united, perhaps others could as well. The spark of rebellion spread across worlds once thought hopeless. The galaxy trembled not with fear this time, but with change. When the smoke cleared, humanity stood bloodied but unbroken. Millions had fallen, worlds lay in ruins, fleets reduced to fragments, but they had survived, and survival itself was victory. Children who had hidden in bunkers now walked beneath free skies. Families who had feared chains now sang songs of defiance. Every grave became a monument, every scar a story. In the Galactic Council, no one laughed at humanity anymore. Ambassador Lyra entered the chamber to silence. Where once she had been mocked, now every eye watched with respect, even fear. Her words rang out like iron. You thought we were weak. You thought we were prey. But we have proven otherwise. Humanity will never again bow. Humanity will never again be silent. And if the galaxy remembers one thing, let it be this: we are here to stay. The galaxy recorded that day in history as the dawn of a new age. The Dominion, once untouchable, had been humbled, and the humans, once overlooked, had become a force none dared to ignore. Admiral Reeve, weary and scarred, stood on Earth's surface at last. He looked upon the crowds of survivors, their voices raised in songs of unity. He saw children waving banners painted with the words, "Never again." He saw soldiers holding hands with families, smiling despite their wounds. And for the first time in years, he allowed himself a faint smile. In his private journal, he wrote the final words of the war. They wanted to erase us. They wanted to silence us, but we endured. And in enduring, we became something greater. Humanity will always be defiance. Humanity will always be the storm. And so, the war ended, but the legacy remained. A legacy, written in blood and sacrifice, in courage and unity. A legacy that would echo through the stars for millennia. The legacy of defiance.